Happy Monday night to you. Hopefully you'll be Tuesday. Everything's going well in my world. Hope your indications on how different teachers were handling your classes. It sounds like some are doing exactly what I'm doing, and some gave us for the rest of the semester and a deadline to turn them in. Uh, the way I teach, I guess that doesn't work very well. So, again, I realize you didn't sign up for a class presented fashion, and I'm going to do everything I can to help you get where you need it. Help your GPA as you move in your next year of work. To those of you who are seniors, I don't remember how many seniors we might have in this class, if any, but if you are a graduate, man, I feel for you. This has been a real roller coaster. Hang in there. Today, I want us to spend some time remember the theories that we talked about just very quickly. A bit more about moral rights theory. We've talked about if P, and some of you have been using that in your responses. I appreciate that. Some of you have been increasingly giving better and better responses. You're writing books now when you respond. Some of you are still trying to just quick sentence. Give it some thought. Give it some time. You've got still a lot of other things to think about. But the only way I know how you're doing class is the way that you're responding on the discussion board. And checked to see how many people have responded to one of the discussion questions. We've got a couple who haven't responded at all. Those, please get to the Blackboard, to the discussion forum. Questions, they will be up for the rest of the semester. I'm not going to take them down. It's a lot easier for us to interact if you do them that they're assigned. And of course, something you get on Tuesday, Thursday, and then the thing you get on Thursday, you get all the way to the next Tuesday. It may be that a whole bunch of you did stuff today that I've not gone in and responded to, but I may do that before I get. My sleep schedule is a little messed up right now. It's I get close to 11 o'clock, and I haven't been able to sleep before 2. So I got nowhere to be and nothing else to do. Try to get to those as quickly as I can and get those graded for today. I want to take another look at some of the theory that we've looked at, and a little bit more at moral rights theory, and then we'll look at some more of the universal rights from the UN. Pop this up here. The two things that we haven't talked about as far as rights theory is concerned is that moral right. That one's kind of an odd one to me. It would seem to decide whether you want the right or not, but the right is always there. You should change your mind in the future. In the state of Texas, that I learned as a youth minister, you cannot sign away your rights. You have a 16-year-old who's going on a field trip. Flags. We all had kind of a standard waiver of liability that we would have the parents sign. Found out years that even if they signed that if the child got hurt while they were under my care, the church was still liable for it. So I'm not sure why we had them sign it, other than we could present it back to them and say, well, look, you told us that you weren't going to, maybe shame them into not doing that. But at least at that time, you cannot sign away your rights. So if P has a right to X, P has a right to X. We're going to be talking about marriage here in just a few minutes. I mentioned that in class when we were talking about this. Just because P does not decide to be gay does not mean that P has waived his right to X. Decide he wants to be married next week or 10 years from now or the day before he died. Right is always available to him as long as he is alive. And then the last one, moral rights. And this one is very difficult for me, and you may have a better grasp to do. If P has a right to X, then P weighs all other considerations. So if I have a right to life, then I can't give you my heart as a donation. Right? I may leave it as a liquid. I can donate my organs after I'm gone, but I can't give up my right to have the right to give you my heart while I'm still living. I can't have the right to euthanasia. And that's a big fight. Several years in the United States, let's say, is suffering from cancer, and what he wants to do is take his own life prior to having to go through taking his life from him. And so he goes to the doctor and asks the doctor will help him in committing suicide. Oh, that's still illegal everywhere, but there's been a discussion on whether that law should be changed or whether that law should be even forced. Is it okay for me to waive my right in order to alleviate suffering that I see might be coming my way in the future? Dated a girl in high school whose grandmother was very old, still lived with them. And I was at their house one day, and she called me in where she was, and she said, "I want you to pray for me." And I said, "Okay, what would you like for me to pray?" "I want you to pray that I would die." Well, I was, I, I couldn't do it. It just didn't seem right to pray for her demise. Now, all these years later, I understand where she was coming from. But according to the moral right, if P has a right to X, that is, if P has the right to life, the right outweighs all the other rights that might be consideration. So those are some things to keep in. And then this one you might find useful discussion, and that is it's not reserved for any country or social class. And particularly you might think about social class as we talk about today's subjects, but if P has a right, then anyone else in P's situation would have X as well. So if I'm an adult male, whether I'm black, white, brown, green, or purple, I should have the same set of rights. If I'm an adult female, all of the same rights across the board, because if that right, then everybody else in my situation should have the right as well. All right, let me remind you of some of the things that we've talked about. Was the act utilitarianism, right? One ought to do the action that will create more social utility than any other possible alternative action. We should do the things that make life better for everybody. Okay. Utilitarianism, that is, that we see the thing that is the best for everybody. We codify that, we make it into a rule, right? So one ought to do that is in accord with the rule that would, if generally followed, more social utility than any alternative rule. To Immanuel Kant's first, I think it was his first, anyway, that one should only follow the maxim that if everyone everywhere that rule. Right, that's loosely stated, but you know what I'm saying. That everyone should only choose to do the things that they would want everybody else everywhere do that as a rule. So rule utilitarianism, choose that rule, the most social utility. Then the moral rights rule, which we've been discussing. Ethical decision is one that best maintains and protects inalienable rights and privileges of the people affected by this. As the justice rule, and we talked about that, about Hobbes and Locke and Rousseau and the idea of social contract. this and is invested with the right to secure mutual protection and to regulate the relations among its members. So if in order society, we have to have rules. So it is assumed that organized society has the right to make rules. Right now, we're in the middle of a lot of questions as to what federal government make, what rules should the state government make, in an effort to keep the most people safe during the COVID-19 crisis. So, social the right moral rules are those who would be chosen by rational people under the right circumstances. We want to try to at least what might be a general idea of things being. Okay? So all of those are things that we talked about right before I fell out of the attic. So put those things back in your. And you might also go back and take a look from section 3. Particular today, I want us to take a look at articles 17 and 18 from in 30. The first one is really become an interesting one in the last 20 years. Right? Men and women without any limitation due to race, nationality, or religion have the right to marry and to found a family. They are entitled to equal rights as to marriage, and at its dissolution. Okay? So, in other words, or to divorce, all people should have the same right under law. Now, I want us to notice a couple of things about 1940 marriage here. Okay, men and women of full age. Their assumption frame was that marriages would be men and women, right? Without any limitation due to race, nationality, or religion. But they do not say with respect to equality. Right? They leave that out. It's not something that they assumed in 1998 would be such a question in 1998. Right? And a lot of things changed in culture, and the real push same-sex marriage didn't come until about the turn of the millennium, in the last 20, 25 years. That there's been a lot of discussion about that toward naturalizing the idea of male and female marriages or having the same status and the same standing. Women of full age. Different countries, different states have different definitions. It means to be of full age. When my wife and I got married, and so we went to the seat in White County, and so where Searcy is, where Harding University, go Bison. And when we went in, the woman behind the counter would not issue a license because she didn't believe that Becky was 18. At that time, you had to be 18 in order to be married. She showed her license. She said, well, anybody can fake an ID. And so they would issue the marriage license. Her mother happened to work for a time in the next county. And so her mother called that county seat and they opened late so Becky can come and they could get their license. Drove, an extra 30 minutes to get to the place at that license that night and go ahead with our marriage. In White County, they didn't want to believe that she was of full age to issue the license. Her grandmother, on the other hand, told them all of her life that she was married when she passed away. They got to comparing her birth certificate and death certificate, and it seems as if she at 15 or maybe even younger. So what's the what's the right age to be full age? How old should be before they decide to get married? Now, your generation, the generations before you have not. You've done a lot more living together. Marriage is being put off farther and farther. We have far fewer 19 and 20-year-olds getting married, and far more seniors and beyond getting married. And of course, that's a real problem for me, that people are living in open sexuality. The the right of marriage, but I want to say that I was told by one of the marriage homeless researchers that about 8 of this generation will live with somebody prior to getting married. The person they're living with prior to marriage is their marriage partner eventually, or with someone and then eventually marry someone else. 10. So again, men and women of full age, your generation is longer to get married, so that's a little less of a question. Without limitation to nationality or religion, have the right to marry and to found a family. There's some you cannot get married if you are not of the right religion. Some places where you cannot get married if you are not of the right religion, or there are certain strictures, regulations that you have to abide by if you want to get married in place, because your religion is not their religion. Now, they're entitled to equal rights as to marriage, getting married, the nuptials, the marriage ceremony, during the marriage, and at its dissolution. One of the same-sex marriage that was being debated mainly around 2000, 2005 range was the problem of partners access to each other's HIPAA information. In other words, my wife was in the room with me for most of the time I was in the hospital. But prior to a lot of laws being made in the last year, same-sex partners didn't have those rights. So you couldn't get information if you weren't the next of kin, and you could be kin because you didn't have the right of marriage. Right? Marriage shall be entered into only with the free and full consent of the spouses. In 1948, there was still a problem with people selling their children. But I assume that that still might be happening somewhere on the planet. But ladies in particular, young men maybe not as much, but young ladies, I think it would be if your dad showed up one day and said, "Well, I have decided that you're marrying, and the marriage is going to be, this summer, this June." You don't have anything to say about it. I don't care if you like him. I don't care if you love him. I don't care if he's attractive. I don't care about any of those things. I've made a contract with family, and you're going to fulfill that contract because basically I follow you, and you're going to do what I tell you to do. So in 1948, that the UN thought needed to be addressed, and so they included that section. And then the third section says less of a right, but more of a statement of purpose. The family is the mental group unit of society and is entitled to protect society and by the state. In other words, the state needs to that protect the institution of marriage. Right? This is a fairly good job of that. Other places maybe well, but in our country, there are a lot of perks, a lot of actions that go along with being in a marriage relationship. Part, I think, is such a strong statement, and maybe people in the current generation are not as likely to agree with this. So you might address this in your response if you like. The family, and fundamental group unit of society. Current generation, over 50% children are being raised in single-parent families. Right? So, yeah, a parent and children. But what they're talking about is right, the larger context of Article 16 is the right thing is a married couple raising kids is the natural fundamental group of society. Right? So societies work best when parents are raising children. And I realize that there are lots of things that get in the way of that. And lots of things from having what would be the very best possible in our marriages. But I think it's interesting that the United Nations how important the family unit really is. And I could get a little preachy, at least for a minute. In the, God created Adam, and Adam was by himself. And in his loneliness, God kept bringing the animals that he created. And Adam would name the animals, and but not an animal that was suitable to be his companion. So put Adam into a sleep, and he took one of his ribs and he formed from rib. And he brought the woman to the man. And as a result, you have two human beings who bond together. So from the very beginning of biblical history, this idea that the world works best is inhabited by families, by married who are raising their offspring together. Article 17, everyone has the right to own property alone as in association with others. You might find it interesting that a lot of have independent bank accounts, even after they're married. They have their own property, right? I have my bank account with my job, and we also have bought a house where both names, or we have a car that both of our names are on the deed. Times couples will have both property and property that they hold in association with others. Same thing is true in business. Right? We might have a home that we own that is our home, business that we own with several other people or investors or people that are with us to further that business. So we can do with our property without asking anybody's permission. But own property with other people, then we have to work alongside them. Decisions on that joint property. But the point is, everyone has the right by themselves. Right? If an individual 48 wanted to own property, this might be something really for them. Right? That people not only should allow property, but that people should help them own property. For banks that were very, very slow to loan money to certain groups, them to own property. And one of the South for voting was that you had to be a property owner. Right? So if I block you from being able to purchase property, then you can't be a voter. And if you can't be a voter, you can't. Right? So that closed society that we've spoken of from owning property individually or as a group, then having any standing in society. No one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his property. I made my payments. If I'm in good standing with the bank, or if I have paid off, and I own the paperwork free and clear of my property, not arbitrarily. And again, there's that word. You should not be able to just decide that you're going to take my property from me. There's a real set of circumstances in the United States that has come up, and that is the eminent domain rules. In other words, a highway is going across country, and where your property is, they're pretty much going to be able to get your property. There's supposed to be a price for it, but you don't necessarily have the right to say yes or no. You're stuck having to sell your property in certain circumstances. Now, perhaps there are more safe guards were before, but there are considerations. Again, what's the rule that's going to give the most people? Well, having this 4-lane highway that goes from Los Angeles, where you can go all the way across the country in a matter of 30 or 40 hours. That's going to help a whole lot of people. Your 2 acres, your old goat, may not be as important to you as it is to all these other people. So you had the railroads when they were free. You've got questions about gas lines now, right? Can we this pipeline that goes across Native American lands in South Dakota? Right? Big argumentation about that, especially during the Obama. Does the government have the right to or to attach your land or to use of your land arbitrarily because they want to put in that place? Right? So, problem 18. Everyone has the right to freedom of thought. That one's difficult to gauge, right? I'm going to be able to think what I want to think one way or the other. But he says I have the right to it. To the freedom of conscience. This right includes freedom to change his religion and freedom either alone or in a community with others, public or private, to manifest his religion or belief, practice, worship, and observance. Everyone has the right to freedom of thought. Okay, I can envision God in whatever way I personally envision God. How that envisioning of God applies to me, that I act out that particular understanding of God. And this right includes change. So if I have been raised life in as a Jew, and I have a belief in Messiah, and so the Catholic Church, and I become a Catholic, and a few years later, I someone that is a Baptist, and the Baptist said, "Worship with me." And I start worshiping with them, and I say, "Oh, I really think that this the way they approach Scripture makes more sense to me than the Catholic faith," and so I changed Baptist. And then a few years later, I moved to China. I get to know about Buddha, and I decide that maybe Buddhism. So, what they're saying in the UN in 1948 is, as my conscience and my thought change, I change my religion. It's similar to what we were talking about freely from place to place. Right? I can go anywhere I want to, a citizen of the universe, so to speak. Laws. Right? I can move from place to place. So my mind can move from place to place. My faith can move from faith to faith. My conscience, all of those things can change over time. I have that right. Now, the latter part of this is more striking, and perhaps in the United States we enjoy too much, and we've almost forgotten it. But has the right, either alone or in a community with others. And so I can practice religion individually, or I can practice my religion congregation in public or private. Think about our meetings as being other people to join us for worship. But in general, we're in a setting that we control. We own the building, we own the property to our religious meetings, sort of a private, but also in public. People should be able to live out their religious beliefs where other people can see them. What the United States Constitution put in place was that would not interfere with that. That they would not choose a particular religion to promote. In other words, they're not going to tell you going to be this faith. Everyone, everywhere in the United States, this faith. And we could easily have gotten there. We came out of tradition. Right? The people who began it were by and large Puritans. The Church of England, very conservative folks who had very strict rules, and you better make sure that you stayed in line with those rules, had grown and been allowed to permeate the entire nation. We might have something like a Pope of the United States, who would say, all of you believe this, and this is how you worship, and this is how you do. But the United States, in the beginning, was smart enough, far-sighted enough, to say people are going to want to worship, to have the thought they want to, well, the conscience that they have concerning their worship, and we want them to be able to do privately. Now, again, this is not law. This is the suggestions of what morality looks like. Right? So, this I believe should be law. This is the way things should be. But in the last years or so, there's been a lot of debate over whether religion, just publicly, not in our places of worship. There's not a lot of discussion about that being a problem, but there is a lot of discussion. Should we be able to have public displays of religion? People saying folks should be able to have crosses in your yard, to have Christmas decorations that are nature, or the Ten Commandments on the courthouse lawn, in the chambers of a judge. If you look at the facade, the entryway, the Supreme Court building, right? There are some any kind of public display of any kind of religion. By and large, in the United States, we're talking about Judeo-Christian principles. By far, held to the most practiced is the Judeo-Christian. Right? But everyone should have the right to manifest his religion in teaching, in practice, in worship. So that's a pretty wide range that fear with P's right to thought, religion, as they approach their understanding, otherness of the supernatural, God in general. Okay? So those are three pretty big ones that you can mull over. Feel free to respond to or all of them, and I plan to get back to checking up on the things that you have written to me here in just a little bit before I close out my night. So I will post these things so that you will have them tomorrow, and I will look forward to the things. Have a great rest of your evening, and I will see you soon.